flag. That's a flag. Awesome drive, man. Awesome drive.
It's nice to close out a race like that. That was awesome.
This is the Team Blaney Podcast.
Welcome, everyone, to 2023 season episode 31 of the Team Blaney Podcast. My name is Adam Rogers, and alongside me is co-host Steve Mez. As always, this podcast is brought to you by fans for fans. Steve and I have been following the drivers of the Blaney racing family for 2 decades, and Team Blaney itself launched on social media in 2014. Each weekly episode of the podcast offers an in-depth analysis of Ryan Blaney's latest NASCAR Cup Series race, plus news, notes, and a lineup of special guests all throughout the year. This week, we break down the number 12 team's run in the regular season finale, the Coke Zero Sugar 400 at Daytona International Speedway. Steve, welcome back to this, the 31st episode of 2023. Like I said, just celebrated the regular season finale in the NASCAR Cup Series. Everything came down to this. The weather was perfect for once in Daytona in the summer. I don't know how they managed to pull that off.
And you were there, so that's really kind of a weird thing.
Right? So proving, just like the vortex theory that doesn't exist, this whole thing about me and bringing rain places, that doesn't exist
it doesn't exist either. I mean, there was a statistical thing that was working against you for a while, but okay. Yeah. It was, maybe this was an anomaly, but
I mean, I think for like 3 or so of the races we've been to this year have been impacted by rain, but Daytona was not one of them. at least this one wasn't. And I mean, it was a great weekend. And we talked before about they moved this race from July to the cutoff race ahead of the playoffs, and it just sets up. I mean, there's really only one spot up for grabs here, but the regular season championship was still on the line. Mm-hmm. Still lots of drama. Lots of great racing, some kind of insane racing in this race. I mean, if you are the casual fan tuning in, or the casual fan, I know a couple actually that came to the race, one of their first races that they've been to. You had the drama, you had exciting racing, you had spectacular crashes, which are unfortunate that we'll have to talk about one of them. But it's kind of what fans fill the seats at Daytona for. Now, it wasn't a sellout, but they did mention the fact that this was the largest crowd for a summer Daytona race since 2014. So it was pretty great to be a part of that, and pretty cool to take in another race at Daytona. I know you got to take in one of those a couple of years ago too.
Yeah. 2 years ago, that was quite the night for all of us. But the excitement was really, really good. I know the ratings, I just saw a thing about ratings a little bit ago, and they weren't as good as whatever, but I thought the racing was incredible. And as we'll talk about during the review of the race, the in-car cameras were just incredible to look at, especially the situation where it gets 3 wide and Ryan goes up the middle. He literally goes up the middle. There's points and times where people bail from the middle, and there's 3 car lengths in front of him, and within a straightaway, he sucks right up to the next car and, basically passes 5 or 6 cars on each side of him by doing that. And, the things that the 12 team and Ryan did to get the car up front, I think 2 different runs to the front during the second stage. So it was great to watch while it lasted. We'll talk about other people later.
When you bring up the ratings thing, honestly, I'm not shocked that ratings were down, and there was a big issue this week and last week as well. This was, I think, the last week of the NFL's preseason, and a lot of major markets had the race either not on or moved to like a secondary channel that maybe not everybody gets or knew about. And this week so far on SiriusXM NASCAR, several callers calling in saying, I didn't get to see the first half of the race because it was preempted by football. And I mean, I understand their arguments. I saw NBC affiliates and different NASCAR social media influencers like putting out listings and trying to warn people the fact that the race might not be on. And I mean, it is unfortunate the fact that preseason NFL takes out a really pivotal race in the NASCAR Cup Series season. But for those local affiliates, I know they buy those preseason packages, and it's some of the biggest money they make all year. So it is what it is, but I didn't anticipate the ratings to be down a little bit.
I'm curious to how they factor in streaming on any of that, because a couple people said if you went through Hulu, there was a way of doing it through Hulu, I believe, and also the NBC Sports app Even though there's not an NBC Sports channel anymore on cable, the app still exists. And there's been points and times where this time of the year, once NBC has the coverage, where I just use the app. I pull up the NBC Sports app, and it's there on the app. So I'm curious as to, they give you these television numbers, but I got to wonder how many people switch over to the app and actually pull it up through the app.
Yeah.
Or streaming in some way. And do those streaming numbers count towards regular broadcast television numbers? I think people have gotten to the technology, and we're at the point now where it's, a lot more people have the technology to go ahead and do it that way if they have to.
Absolutely. So if you missed the race, that's unfortunate, but you did miss some spectacular racing, and we couldn't get to that racing without the very important no practice but qualifying session that happened leading up to this race. And we've been talking a little bit, I don't want to say we've been down on the 12 team, but we mentioned the fact that they've struggled a little bit with speed. One place they haven't struggled with speed this year, though, has been some of the super speedways, and they showed up to qualifying and ended up doing pretty well.
Yeah, the best part about qualifying is that if you do qualify well, you get good pit selection, and pit selection is going to be hugely important when you're going with a fuel-only pit stop or something like that. So I think Ryan went out 31st overall, but ended up P8 in the initial set of qualifying. So he gets the top 10. The top 10, of course, goes for the pole. He went out third in that qualifying session, went to the top of the board, and then everybody passed him. He basically had the seventh best car. Once those guys, very rarely after everybody qualifies and they go to the top 10 on super speedways, very rarely does anybody all of a sudden find a little more speed. The only thing that was really kind of crazy was the Stewart-Haas cars were all in the top 10. Ryan ends up 8th, and the 14 wins the pole. I had like the 10 car was second. The 21 qualified really, really well up to third. And the 23 was in P4 and the 54 was in P5. So the two of them, joined it at the hip like they needed to be points wise. So, and actually, here's another one. The 36 car was P6. I wrote that in the notes too, because that's just.
Yeah, and that's right. Riley Herbst making
Herbst.
A rare start in the Cup Series this season. So 36 for front row.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the third Monster Energy entry in this race. So I feel bad for all those spotters between the 45, the 36, and the 54. Man, good luck. I mean, I'm sure they had a tough night.
We had on Bubba and his spotter late in the race, and they were complaining because their car was a real dark car, and it just kind of blended in with the rest of the dark cars out there too. So we get to Saturday night. We get pit stall 32, which is open in front, and the 15 is behind him. So it should be all right the rest of the night. Stages of 35, 95, and 160. 7 sets of tires. Not that we're going to need all of those. Fuel run of 41 to 45 laps. This will be, the most important thing. Filling it up with fuel, trying to get to the end of a stage. To the rear of the 42 and the 13, Roger came on the radio. Well, once they got out on the track there to wish everybody luck, Ryan is talking before they even start about pushing the 36. And I have in question marks here the rear end of the 36 may be skewed a little too much, so it may be off-centered a little bit. This is something that they showed during the qualifying, or some of these cars where they're back to crab walking a little bit again.
Yeah, this was surprising to see, because people thought for the most part they had gotten rid of this, at least in the Cup Series, because there's some rules that were put in place with the previous generation car. But it seems like some of these teams have figured out a way to get through inspection straight. And then when they get out on the track, they've done it. I mean, it's not as bad as it was maybe in the mid, or in like the mid 2010s, but it was definitely evident, and those cars were fast. I mean, I think every Stewart-Haas car was set up like that. The front row cars were set up like that. Penske cars, though, were not. They were pretty straight.
Yeah.
So it was interesting to see that again. But like you said, in practice or in qualifying, they talked about like this could be trouble in the race itself when you're trying to push a guy.
Yeah. Jonathan comes on, tells him everything's good on pit road speed. Do that all night long. The 14 takes the outside for the initial start, so I think that's good because Ryan's on, up there in that lane. But then as soon as they get out there, the 14 covers the low lane. So by lap 2, the 23 is leading the high lane. Ryan is in third in that line pushing, with the 4 pushing Ryan. So that's a good position, except for that he's trying to push the 36, and he's not too keen on doing that because he doesn't know him very well. And the 36 holds the line up. At lap 4, the 54 goes in front of the 23. Ryan's in fourth in that line. Lap 5, he tries to go around the 36. And this was where he got,
This was sketchy. I was like, oh man, not already.
He later on, I don't know if I have it in my notes or not, later on actually says something to the effect of, I should have been more patient. Because he tries to go around him and thinking he's going to get other people to come with him, because the 36 is holding up the line, not helping the line, not moving anything in front of it. So when he bails out to the right there, I thought he thought that maybe the 4 was going to come with him, but no, he kind of got hung out there. And he starts losing spots. So, lap 6, he goes to the low lane, and by lap 7, he's P21 now. So he's moved backward a little bit because of this move. Lap 10, the lower lane has 6 cars ahead of the high lane, and he's in 19th. So he's in the lane that's moving a little bit at least. At lap 20, he's running next to the 36. So he moved to the other lane, and 36 is still kind of holding up his lane and getting jostled around a little bit, and he's running with him now, right next to him, up to 17th doing that. And he does tell Jonathan he's tight in 3 and 4, knowing that they're going to, when they do come to pit, what adjustments to make. I have in here foot cam during and the in-car camera was super later on in the race, but at this point in the race, NBC has the camera inside the car too. And so it's not just the regular NASCAR cam.
All the cameras on him this race.
Yeah. And this foot cam thing that I don't know if they made, I don't even know if they showed it on network TV, to tell you the truth. They were going to, they were going to make a deal out of like watching how, they're dragging the brake or whatever. And it never happened. But yet on the NASCAR app, as I'm watching the in-car camera, there was like 15 laps of foot cam. And it just, I got on Twitter right away and says, stop with the foot cam, but I don't know if they're paying attention or not.
I don't want to interrupt your race recap here, but I just remembered something I wanted to mention about qualifying, and it's the fact that Ryan ran both of his qualifying laps driving with one hand.
Oh, yeah.
Because he did that thing where they'd break the air with that opening.
Put the hand up into the window area to keep the air from coming in.
But
trying to make it.
Yeah. It just reminded me, you're talking about all these cameras. He had like 3 or 4 in-car cameras, and they had a great one that was showing him do that. And I think people are so used to seeing it now, the broadcasters didn't really even mention it that much, but I was impressed that he did it for the full lap. When normally those guys usually only do it like on the straightaways because they need to handle in the turn. So it's a little bit easier to drive a qualifying lap at Daytona. So anyway, back to our regularly scheduled race recap.
At lap 22, there's nowhere to go. Basically, the 11's taking the lead from the top. Both lanes are. He's trying to play both lanes. Basically, you're bouncing back and forth out front there. Lap 26, they're thinking of changing lanes here. Lap 30, he's 28th. At lap 35, the 19 wins the stage, and he's 22nd. Tells Jonathan we're tight on the bottom. Jonathan tells him we're going to be waiting on fuel, air pressure adjustment.
Now, you mentioned the fact about him bouncing between lanes here. There was a point, at least, from a fan perspective or somebody there, it looked like he bailed and just went to the back to ride around for a little bit. And then like business picked up at the front to where I was nervous. And then all of a sudden you see the 12 drive up into the fray. And I was like, well, this doesn't seem like a great strategy if you're trying to bail. So, but I think it did give him some practice, at least changing lanes, seeing what kind of runs he can get. And he's usually pretty good about practicing that stuff early on. I'm glad he lived to see another day in that stage, despite what happens later, but it did make me a little bit nervous to see him drop all the way to the rear, hang out for a little bit, and then try to drive back into the middle of it toward the end.
He says that's what I get for not being patient, like a jacket, and
Anywho,
so he said, he basically says it, that's what caused them to go backward. It wasn't anything wrong, or they didn't have a game plan to go back there or anything like that. They in 22nd, out 24th. Like I said, the pit stop was waiting on fuel. So I think, I can't remember now because I didn't write it down here. It was in near the 12-second range. But like I said, they were probably waiting for about 2 seconds on gas. I think I might have video of it. I'll put on the TikTok in my TikTok for tomorrow. So Jonathan, of course, save all you can at this point. We got a penalty on the 8 and the 31 cars to the rear. Ryan takes the bottom, and the 22 leads from the bottom, and restarting at lap 40. By lap 42 is in 16th, and he's 9th in that low lane. Lap 43, the 16 is making it 3 wide. And Brian asks, so the leader saving gas? And the 22 is stacking it all up. And yes, he's saving when he can. That's what he gets back. So
this was impressive to see. I mean, the racing here that goes on for the next stretch here was kind of electric. Yeah, especially for the folks that were in the stands, and I'm sure even at home, just kind of edge of your seat. I made the joke in our Team Blaney Discord chat, which again, thank you to Daytona and Verizon for hooking us up with amazing Wi-Fi there now, because I can hop into Discord and still talk with the folks. But I said, this racing's, awesome, 3 wide. I was like, but I guarantee Steve can ruin this by telling us they're just saving fuel.
Yeah. Yeah, by lap 46, they're 3 wide, and I had it. It's so funny, but I had it in my notes before I even saw that on Discord. So yeah, they were saving fuel to some extent, but it made the racing racier. It brought everybody together, and they did go 3 wide. And Daytona's not as wide as Talladega, so it really gets kind of hairy. And the in-car camera at this point of Ryan was incredibly fun to watch. Scary. Edge of your seat, but through the front end of the car, they were going up the middle, and it was fun to watch. Lap 47, the 9 is leading the high lane. Lap 48, the 16-9 are battling for the lead. Ryan moves to the middle lane there, then to the top lane, then back to the middle lane, all within a lap. Trying to figure out where the moves are going to make. Lap 50, it's running middle of 3. I heard middle of 3 from Josh so many times in the next couple laps. But he's 23rd at this point. The 22, the 16, the 4 battling up front. Lap 55, the 54, the 1, the 16 are the 3 leading the 3 lanes. Ryan's up to 20th. Lap 60, pushing in the middle. Now in the top high lane, all of a sudden the 5's pushing. He's up to 10th. Lap 65, it's in the high lane up to 9th here. And Josh tells him, good job getting us back up here. Josh recognizes what kind of moves he was making there. Lap 66, he's now in the high lane. He's, leading the high lane, and he's P5 doing that. And the 1 is leading down below him. Lap 69, Josh asks how it's handling. Ryan says better. Plus, he was able to save some fuel during this too. At lap 70, the 9 and the 5 lead the low lane. And lap 73, he goes low with the 9 pushing him, leads the low lane all the way up to 2nd. At lap 75, the 41 comes down in front of him. He goes around him. Lap 76, he goes to the lead with the help of the 22 car pushing him. So, this is just getting to be a lot of fun. We're back at the front. We got the 22 actually helping out. I got here, Josh and Ryan are putting on a clinic. They were just, around this guy, over that, past that guy, push up the middle. And there were some points in the middle where guys were bailing left and right, and he would just suck up to the next 2 or 3 cars in front of him. He gained 5 spots in like half a lap. Lap 77, the 1 is now pushing, and the 44 is leading the high lane, side drafting him really hard.
Now, you mentioned the fact you just said ago, Ryan and Josh putting on a clinic, and I feel like I say this in every Super Speedway recap episode. Doesn't matter the generation of car, the old generation car, next gen car, Ryan knows what he's doing on these tracks, and some guys just have it. And while they've talked about this package kind of struggling, I feel like I mentioned to you before that at Talladega earlier this year, I thought it kind of turned a corner. They went 3 wide at Talladega and raced really well as a whole. They're able to run 3 wide here at this race. Things are a little bit racier, but no matter what, the same guys still find their way to the front every single time. And they have to have a really strong spotter like Josh Williams and a really strong driver at these tracks like Ryan Blaney. And it's so fun for Daytona to basically be my home track and getting to see pretty much almost guaranteed every time I'm going to see Ryan Blaney lead laps there, because he finds his way to the front and can stay out there and kind of control the race and at least have a shot to win it for the most part, as long as they stay clean. So just thankful to be able to see this stuff in person. And man, it's just so cool to see the 12 car lead laps, and he's in the advanced auto scheme, and the crowd's cheering when he takes the lead. I mean, it's just awesome to see. And I just want to know, I mean, Dave was really good. I don't know if any tips that Dave was able to pass on, whether it's just genetic, it's just in the blood, whatever it is. The Blaneys know what they're doing when it comes to super speedway racing. It's just always cool to see while it lasts.
Yeah. By lap 80, the 47 actually gets in front of Ryan, but the next lap they're pitting. They're going to start pitting, green flag pitting, fuel only. It's like a little over 3 second stop here. He leads his group off a pit road. So the guys he came in with, some of the Fords, and not everybody pitted with their manufacturer.
No, it was odd. This was like a weird round of pit stops. I was really confused because Ryan and Joey go to pit, and then it was like, here's some Chevrolets, here's some, it just was a weird set of people. It just seemed like it just wasn't coordinated like it usually is. Yeah.
So, but he leads the group off a pit road, and then at lap 84, another huge group comes in. So, lap 85, Josh tells them we're good to go wide open till the end of the stage on gas. They got enough gas to do that. Lap 88 is in the low lane, up to 12th here. And the 21 is actually leading at this point. As they merge all back together and all these guys start to come back together, they start to get 3 wide again here. At lap 90, the 8 is leading. And lap 92, Ryan's up to 5th, coming up, once again, I think coming up through the middle a little bit here. At lap 93, the 22 pushes the top really hard. At lap 95, as a matter of fact, 92, the 22 pushes and then the 54 ends up to the lead at this point. And lap 95 is where this all happens with the 20 and the 54. We're coming to the end of the stage. Ryan makes a really good move down the backstretch, gets pushed from Keselowski actually in the low lane. And as they go into 3 and 4, Ryan has the lead, and the 20 car, I said it on everywhere, piece of social media I could put it on. At the end of the race, the last lap of the race, the super speed races, however you got to beat and bang, that's what you do. We saw at Talladega, Bubba tried to block 3 ways to Sunday. To block Ryan, couldn't do it, couldn't pull it off. It was the last lap. It was the last chance. Ryan tried to go around him, caused that to happen. This is the end of a stage. Okay. There's a bonus point, sure, for a playoff guy if a playoff guy wins the stage. Okay. But it doesn't put you in the playoffs. Okay. So the 54 winning the stage doesn't really matter. The 54 needs to win the race. He's pretty much gotten about the same amount of points so far as the 23 has. The 23 is running somewhere in the top 10. 23 had a pretty good points cushion on to begin with. He was going to have to win the race to get in the playoffs. And all you really did was wreck him and keep him from getting into the playoffs. And the excuses of the 20 car, well, that's just racing. No. This is something you do not do in the turns during the middle of a race. If you want to do it on the last lap, I can excuse it. I really can. We've seen Ryan on the last lap, on the front stretch, right? And do what he's got to do on the last lap. Yes. At the end of a stage, no. And the thing is he does this little interview afterward, and that's what he says. He's kind of like, well, this is racing. It's just kind of one of them racing deals. And No, it's not. This is stupid. And, I know we're the little podcast and not everybody's going to be listening to this, but the 20 car, really, that was a dumb move. And he has not done really well in super speedways to begin with. And this is probably why. Because you race like that and you mess up other people's races and your races are going to get messed up. The worst part is he got to move on. The 54 gets wrecked out. Ryan gets wrecked out in this horrific crash. And the 2020 who caused everything here ends up getting to race the rest of the race. And it's no fair.
Yeah. I mean, this is the first collective gasp that goes out in that grandstand at Daytona, because such a hard hit for the 12 car. If you watch the replays, man, I don't know that I've seen a safer barrier flex as much as that did. I know immediately, and social media posts after, and mirroring or pairing up the videos. People are comparing it to the Earnhardt crash because it happened in a very similar spot on the track, like almost identical, very similar type of crash.
Yeah, the way he got turned.
So all I can say, thank God for the safety advances that have been made between the head and neck restraints and the safer barriers, and thankfully, man, they redesigned this front clip earlier this year. And, this is Ryan's second really hard front impact of 2023, the first one coming at Nashville. But thankfully, there was a safer barrier in this spot. There was not a safer barrier where he crashed at Nashville. So, man, it was rough to see, because, he's leading the stage. I've talked about it for the last 3 weeks. I was money hungry for these playoff points, and he's about to get a bonus point for winning the stage. And all I can see is, fifth and sixth in the final point standings being up for grabs if he can get these stage points plus that playoff point. And I'm just wanting these bonus points to go into the playoffs with. And then in an instant, it goes away. And my apologies to Brad Keselowski, because I was cursing him kind of immediately, because in this next gen era, he's been a little bit, and even in his final Daytona 500 with Team Penske, he's been a little bit rough at Daytona when it comes to bump drafting. So I assumed it was the six, when it was obviously the six had nothing to do with it. He actually had backed off in the turn to try to make a run down the straightaway. So sorry, Brad, didn't have anything to do with you. I just made assumptions there. And you're right. I mean, everything you said is correct. You can't push in the turns. If you are going to push in the turns, it better mean something that you're going up for. And his quote, I thought it was interesting that it comes out at the end of the race that Ryan hung around. I think he actually saw it on the in-car.
Well, I think he probably had to, because he made the playoffs.
But yeah, he hung around, and he went and talked to Bell after the race. And I don't know if it was just out of, it was convenient. They were in the same spot because, like you said, they have to do some media availability because they made the playoffs. So I don't know that he necessarily went and sought him out to go talk to him, but he took the opportunity to talk to him. And Bell just said in his interview, yeah, Blaney's mad. Well, yeah.
Yeah. But then to say, well, it's just one of them racing things. No, it's not. And they're never gonna, some of these guys never take responsibility for, and it's just a type A personality maybe that they have to be a race car driver. But yeah, take a little responsibility there. Brad, I'm glad you pointed that out. Brad made the push down the backstretch. He pushed Ryan to the lead. Okay. He gets to the turn. Now he sets himself up to try and make a move down the front stretch. He does not spend the rest of the turns 3 and 4 on Ryan's bumper. So if the 20 does the same thing, now the 20 can get to the front stretch and maybe push the 54, maybe gather up the 6, make some sort of move down the front stretch. Not, like I said, not nudge him. And all it took was a slight nudge. He was not lined up. He was not lined up directly on him either, which with these cars and these bumpers, you have to be kind of square. And he wasn't that either. And it was a crappy racing move. It was not a solid racing move. And for him to just be like, well, that's just racing. I'm sorry, it's not. And of course I'm biased because it ruined the day of 16 cars were involved. The 54, the 12, the 16, the 47, 21, the 2, the 5, 36, the 20, 3, 4, 11, 45, all involved in one way, shape, or form. Some of the guys' days ended on that, some guys' chances at racing for the victory at the end of the race and getting into the playoffs ended on that. And you got to look yourself in the mirror and go, what am I thinking here? risk reward. This is the same thing that the Penske drivers were warned about a year or two ago, racing with each other. Early in the race, why? At the last lap, okay, all bets are off for everybody. But that's what I'm saying. I mean, don't race like it's the last lap when it's not.
Thankfully, as far as we know, I mean, Ryan did his interview at the Care Center. Seemed a lot, compared to his Nashville interview where he seemed a little bit stunned, a little bit shaken up. It seemed like with this one, he took the hit a little bit better, even though it was a pretty horrific crash. So as far as we know, as of recording, everything's going to be fine for this weekend when they head to Darlington. But man, just a rough way to end this regular season. And unfortunately, we'll go through the points here in a little bit. Unfortunately, no extra bonus points for this 12 team.
Yeah.
And but they did have that win in their pocket. So
yeah. I talked to somebody who was there who talked to him afterward. So he said he was fine. He was he was talking with his crew guys, messing around. I left the in-car camera on for a couple minutes when they backed the car into the garage there. It was kind of interesting to watch because the guys from the crew, like Raymond comes over, Jonathan comes over, and they're definitely looking into the engine, looking underneath the hood. As I found out later on, though, there's really nothing quite salvageable there. The engine was damaged pretty bad, which kind of sucks too, because that engine was a really, really good engine. Obviously, they had that thing tuned up perfectly. They had that car massaged just right, to race properly, to race really well in traffic and so forth. So kind of sucks they lost a bullet they probably were going to use at Talladega anyway, but I'm sure they can hopefully prepare another car for Talladega just like that. The rest of the race was kind of fun, the third stage, because you're still watching the drama of will Bubba get in as the 16th guy, or will somebody from outside the top 16 win a race and put themselves in.
There was a lot in contention. I tell you what, Chase Elliott was up front multiple times in this last stage. The crowd, obviously, most popular driver, going crazy every time he'd take the lead. There's a point here, I think the Stewart-Haas cars are linked up. And Harvick was up there too, but it's his other teammates were up there. There's like an opportunity where in the top 10 there was 4 or 5 guys in the top 10 at one point that all were winless and could play spoiler here. So things got pretty interesting, and the drama didn't end. The crazy crashes unfortunately also didn't end.
Yeah, we get that crash at the end.
5 to go.
Yeah, 5 to go with the. I had the in-car camera on of Bubba Wallace at this point because we're kind of monitoring him and seeing how with the cut line. He's good on the cut line, but is anybody else going to win this race that'll knock him out? And that incident there, the 41 got turned and went sideways, and then to get up in the air like that was really, really crazy to see. He got out of the car, and guys were kind of holding him up, and I was in a way glad to see them put him on a stretcher, because I'm looking, you're looking at him and they're kind of holding him up, and I'm like, he doesn't look like he's steady on his feet, really glad to hear him get out of the hospital Sunday and get his way back home. I haven't heard nothing. We're taping this Tuesday night. I haven't heard anything yet beyond for next week. I'm guessing that he may or may not race next week. If I were him, I'd take a week or two off. Hate to say that, but at this point, just, physically, that was a heck of a tumble and had to be a lot of bruising and beating around, even though you're in the seat, even though you're strapped into that seat, and so forth. There just had to be a lot of trauma to the body. I don't know how you sleep that off after a day or two, it might take me a couple days for sure.
Yeah. So this was, not a similar incident at all, but as far as the atmosphere goes, very eerily similar to what happened when Ryan Newman crashed. You got a crowd of, 60, 70,000 people that go dead silent. When the crash is happening, it's insane. This happening on the backstretch. And we had a little bit of an indication with a little bit of smoke you could see. Mm-hmm. And then you just see this car flying through the air and everybody just gasps. Mm-hmm. Some people are screaming, and you're just waiting to see on the Jumbotron, like something. And then you're just not sure. I listening to Radioactive on Race Hub, the crew chief and the spotter are saying, Ryan, talk to us. And then they're talking to each other. Have you heard him?
Yeah.
But he actually had already gotten out. So, but man, I don't think they knew until it showed on the TV cameras that he was out of that car. And some things happened here in this crash that, NASCAR takes this car back to R&D. They're going to, review the little black box they got in there, all the data that they can, all the video angles that they can. A couple of concerning things happened. The roof hatch, which is an extra escape route for a driver. It used to be not every car had to run these. I don't know if it's mandated now or not. I think it used to be like driver preference, but I'm not really sure with the next gen Air whether everybody has it. But it's an extra way they can get up out of the roof if they're pinned against the wall. The roof hatch flew off and the window net broke. And the window net's flapping while this car's tumbling through the air. So I'm sure NASCAR is going to take a look at what happened there and see exactly what happened. But man, you've talked about the possibility. I mean, like you said, no news right now. I mean, Ryan's tweeted saying, I'll be back. He didn't really specify when, but he also said it that night at the hospital. Simon Pagenaud, I think, just announced on the IndyCar side that, he's going to be out the rest of the year. And I'm only bringing that up because he had a horrible crash. I think it was at Road America, Mid-Ohio. And similar situation is to where, that car was ripped apart. He tumbled in the air multiple times, almost like Ryan Preece did. He's out for the year. No way we can really compare the safety, and the crashes were totally different. But you're right. Like, I don't know how somebody, is able to come back from that right away. And, people have complained about the safety of the next gen car. Yes, obviously, Kurt Busch officially retires this week after getting, a concussion in the next gen car last year. They fixed that as far as we know. They fixed the front clip as far as we know. This accident that happened is exactly why the next gen car, as far as its safety features go, was built for. They specifically beefed up what they'll call like the greenhouse of the car, that inner part of the car where the driver sits. They beefed that up so much, especially with what happened with Ryan Newman in that previous car as well. They're trying to protect the driver as much as possible in a catastrophic crash. And that was about as catastrophic as a crash that you can get. And it's going to happen on super speedways. And I think that's a testament to the safety of the car overall. While it still is a little bit of a work in progress, I think it did its job, and glad that he was able to kind of walk to the stretcher with some assistance and get out of the hospital the next day. But man, I'm sure all the drivers that were, because they didn't go under the red immediately, I think they still paced around. I'm sure they were, pacing by, rubbernecking a little bit, seeing what was going on with him. And every single one of them has to know, it's like, that could have been me.
Yeah. They red flagged it actually at that point. And they're, I think, on the backstretch, because that's where Brad was doing circles. I don't know if you saw that video or not.
Yeah, I think they did. They eventually did. I think they might have made one pass by, and then they came back around to the backstretch and then stopped. But yeah,
red flagged it. Did you see Brad?
I did see the circles. That was weird.
He thought he was on fire, and he had smoke in the cockpit, I guess. So
a lot of talk about that. I know I haven't listened to Door Bumper Clear, but I know they talked about it, and some other folks about how other people, for other reasons, that have moved during a red flag have been penalized. And they said Brad, NASCAR kind of came out on an XM interview and kind of said, "Oh, we thought this was a safety issue he was trying to solve," so they didn't. They didn't penalize him. I don't really care that much. That was the second car. I forgot to mention this early in the race. And again, people didn't know from the 30 times that I've mentioned that I was there this week already, that in one of the early crashes, it was actually after Ryan's crash there in stage 2, Kyle Larson's car came to rest in front of our section, and his tires were down. And I'm not sure what message he was trying to send. He kept... And there's a red flag in that incident as well. He kept revving his engine like he was angry. And I don't know if he's just trying to get the attention of the safety crew people, but like a push truck had come up behind his car, like he was probably going to give him a push back to pit road. And he just kept revving it and getting angrier and angrier. And then eventually he just does a burnout. He just like spins his car around with like 2 safety trucks next to him. And the crowd's going crazy. I don't think that they know what's going wrong. And to me, thinking about it now, I feel like Kyle was trying to get their attention to tell them, like, don't push me, like, because you might destroy my car, or, like, hook me up instead. But I for a while there, I thought like he was getting angry. They weren't moving him already, and I'm like, it's a red flag. They can't move you. So, but I'm hoping that it was just that fact. But if they didn't penalize, I mean, he was going to be losing a lap or whatever anyway for what this happened. But if the 5 didn't get a penalty for what he did on the front stretch there, I don't think the 6 is going to get a penalty for trying to put a fire out. Or one thing I want to know is they're like, oh, I think it's out and everything's fine now. It's like, what caught on fire?
Yeah, that now it's okay.
Now it's okay. So anyway, so who won the race?
Oh yeah, the 17 won the race.
Third time.
So Bubba gets into as the 16th playoff car. But yeah, they did. They kind of green white checker and tiptoe their way. I don't want to say tiptoe. I mean the racing was good in the green white checker, but they were a little more.
The 6 didn't try to make a run or anything, so it was just a straight up finish to the end. So he could have, and then he probably would have finished like 5th.
Yeah,
but instead he pushes his team car, his one car he part owns to man. Who saw Chris Buescher winning 3 races in 2023?
Yeah, in the last month and a half.
In the last 5, 3 of the last 5, I think, or something.
Yeah, so I mean, get good big credit to them, but yeah. A good way to end the regular season. Playoffs. It's time for some playoffs, Let's get it going.
So I will interrupt the playoff discussion just real quick to we have to award. So Martin Truex Jr. wins the regular season championship in the Cup Series. He actually wrapped that up, I think, after the first stage early on in that race. Yeah. But in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, we have some business to take care of when it comes to our regular season championship. But first, we'll talk about a quick recap of our teams and how they fared. Honestly, I didn't pay attention to fantasy this whole race. I left Kyle Busch in the garage, and he's somebody that I maybe should have hopped back out of there and replaced because I left 39 points sitting in the garage. Started Bubba Wallace, got me 30 points. Started Ty Gibbs, got me 9. Started Blaney, he got me 1. So what I would say is I guess I just wouldn't have had time because that was stage 2 when Gibbs and Blaney both went out with the final lap there. So I don't think I would have had time to actually make a swap. So that'll be my excuse. Started Keselowski, got me 45 points. Started Suarez, got me 26. And again, left Kyle Busch in the garage. Featured matchups, I picked Bubba over Gibbs. That was right. I picked Elliott over Bowman. That was right. I picked Hamlin over Truex. That was wrong by just 2 positions. And I picked Blaney over Logano, and that was wrong. So I ended up 50th overall this week in points earned. And I don't think you particularly had a good week as well. It was better than me, but still not great.
I had Bubba Wallace, Chase Elliott, Alex Bowman. They all finished top 10. Suarez finished 13th, and I had Gibbs end up 28th. And Cindric was in the garage, so there really wasn't any points to be gained there. I had Bubba over Ty, so that was good. Chase over Bowman, that was good by 2 spots. Denny over Truex, and that one was missed that one by 2 spots. And then I had Ryan to beat Joey, and that didn't happen because of the accident. Overall, like I did my strategy where I picked a lot of guys that had to win to get in. And like I said, 3 of them did really well. 3 of them finished top 10. So
the top 10 in points earned in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live week for Daytona. We have a tie for 10th with Alyssa C and Racers F with 184 points. 9th, we have Rochi 12 with 185. Tie for 7th with Penske Fan 24 and Go 12 Go at 187. A tie for 5th with Blaney's Daisy and Jordan Daniels with 191 points. And 4th, we have Blaring Idiots with 200. And 3rd, Pocono Lady 202. And 2nd, Zero Schlitz Given with 203. And first place in points earned this week at Daytona, Steel Lion, 209 points. Now let's take a look at the overall standings, and this is where we will end up crowning our regular season champion in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League. But first, Steve, you ended up finishing the regular season in the 20th position with 4,851 points, and I ended up wrapping up in my normal spot back here in the 30s, 39th. Team Blaney host Adam, 4,609 points. So I was not in contention at any point this season to at least even get into the top 20. I mean, I can't even remember if I was in maybe not even after week one. I think week one I was finished almost second to last. And oddly enough, I finished second to last in week one with the person that ends up winning our regular season championship. So they definitely picked themselves up by the bootstraps and got things going. So the top 10 in the regular season standings after this finale race at Daytona. In 10th, Go 12 Go, 4,918. In 9th, Fike 21, 4,931. In 8th, Blaring Idiots, 4,980. In 7th, Alyssa C, 4,983. In 6th, Eric D15, 5,022. In 5th, Penske Fan 24, 5,024. In 4th, Go Larson, 5,028. In 3rd, Christian Dana, 5,032. In 2nd, Blaney's Daisy, 5,137. And in 1st, the person that I made fun of early on, I think first or second race of the season, finishing all the way, almost last, ends up coming all the way back, winning the regular season championship in the Team Blaney NASCAR Fantasy Live League, is Factory of Sadness 6 with 5,153 points. So congratulations to them. Clearly, they are a Cleveland Browns fan. And I'm happy to see a Browns fan happy because we aren't happy very often. So congratulations there on winning the regular season championship. You win nothing. Good day, sir, but congratulations.
Great reference.
Congratulations overall. But here is things get interesting now. So obviously we're going to keep up with the overall league standings. It's just something we pay attention to. And I think it's actually what we kind of consider our overall championship. We don't really do the whole playoff thing too much, but we do keep a track of the playoff standings because I usually do really well.
Here it is. This is
when I heat up.
That's it. This is where Adam shines.
Yeah, Tony used to heat up in the summer. I heat up in the playoffs when it comes to the fantasy league. So, good news is if you ran out of starts, like Steve ran out of starts for Ryan Blaney and some other folks, the starts reset, but you only get 5 now through the rest of these 10 races here. So, that starts now. So the Fantasy League is going to be entering the playoffs. The NASCAR Cup Series is entering its playoffs. And all of that is going to kick off this weekend at Darlington Raceway. And I encourage you to tune in if you're not going to be there at the track. Practice and qualifying is going to kick off Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on USA, followed by the NASCAR Xfinity Series race at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. The Sports Clips Haircuts VFW Help a Hero 200, again at Darlington. And then these Cookout Southern 500, Sunday, September 3rd, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So remember, it is a Sunday night race. Hopefully you have Monday off to enjoy that holiday. But Darlington Raceway kicks off the playoffs. And one thing that we want to bring back, I don't know whether you'll be able to see it or not, but we'll probably share it on social media, as Steve has fired up his playoff big board and goes through the point standings here. Yeah. And we have some good news. So the bad news was the fact that Ryan crashes out in this Daytona race, he falls out of the top 10 in the final point standings for the regular season, doesn't get any bonus points, doesn't pick up that bonus point for winning that stage he almost won. But unlike last season, he goes in with the victory, and he is starting the playoffs on the plus side of the cutoff line this year.
Yeah, so the bottom of the barrel, 0 extra points, anything like that, starts off at 2,000. Ryan actually ends up with 8 bonus points to start each round, and he can gain more as each round goes by. But 5 for the victory, 3 different stage wins, 8 points, and the top of the board is the 24 and the 19 have 20-36. So to start the playoffs. Ryan is actually right above the cut line. The cut line below him is the 34, the 47, the 4, and the 23. Roughly, I want to say it's almost 60 points a race. If you max out a race, winning both stages, winning the race, I believe it's 60 points total. And then you would get your bonus points for 5 points for winning the race and 2 points for each stage win. So within 3 weeks of races, gaining what would be 28 points to lead the standings is very, very possible. You do quite well, win some stages, get some stage points, move up, and then somebody else has a bad day. And what's interesting about this is there are, already a bunch of predictions out there who's going to do what. But the playoffs, the next round or the first round, the round of 16, as we go from 16 to 12, you just have to beat 4 people. You got to beat 4 people in 3 weeks. You have Darlington, Kansas, which I think is a real bright spot, 1.5 miles. We're back to 1.5 miles. And then Bristol, which we're going to Bristol. I believe you're going to Darlington, correct?
Yes.
Weather permitting in the next couple of days, if you can get out of Florida in one piece. As we're looking at the teams, the 23 has 2,000 points. The 4 has 2004. So he's won a couple stages. The 47, has 2005. He has the victory, and that's his 5 points. The 34 has 2007 points. He's got a victory, and he got 2 stage wins in there to get his points. And then, from Ryan's actually tied with the 22 to start the playoffs. They both have 2008. The 45 has 2009. The 6 has 2010. The 1 car has 2011. And the 20 car has 2014. So he's within 6 points all the way to 6th place. So from being on the cut line, within 1 week, he can move up 5, 6, 7 spots pretty easily, just by having a good finish and somebody else not having as good a finish as him. The 5 car has 2017. The 8 car has 2019. So that's within 11 points, from to 5th. So the guys who are up on the top there, the 24, the 19, the 11, and the 17, those are the ones like this round here. Getting to them, you've got to be really, really good, and they've got to kind of slip a little bit. Do any of those guys look like they're going to slip out of the first round or down below the cut line by Bristol? It really takes 2 bad races to go from being the 24 car, that 19 car with 2036 points to begin with, to slip below the cut line. It would really take a lot. For the most part, like I said, Darlington's the one that Ryan, we know is he's decent, not always a top 10 kind of guy. But the weeks after that, Kansas, I'm really optimistic about, because I know that the speed will be there for Kansas. And then we love Bristol. I raced quite well at Bristol last year before the incident there. So I don't see them having a problem getting out of this round. I'd like to think about the 34, the 47, maybe not making it out of the round. The 23, actually, who's starting off at the bottom here of the standings, he's got his best track, Kansas, coming up, a track that he's won at. So I kind of see them doing, quite well, and maybe even being the guy who wins a race. And that's the other thing about this. You have to beat 4 guys, but if you win within the round, you will go on to the next round no matter what. So he could be one of those cars that takes one of those spots. I don't know. The 8 car, I kind of think is kind of shaky. I don't know if the performance is going to be there over all 3 races for them. I've kind of got a thing for the 20 car now too, after this past weekend.
You're just wishing that upon him. Just sending the bad vibes to the 20 car.
Here you go. This is what you get for being the way you are, for making those comments, The 1 car made the playoffs, but Trackhouse hasn't been quite the same as they were last year. Now he, makes that huge, big play at the end of the year to make it to the Final Four. But I don't know if they've got quite the speed they had last year.
It's funny that you bring that up, because everybody was saying that before Nashville. Then he goes out and wins Nashville. And then everyone's already back to saying that again, because he's just been kind of average. Obviously, he's outperformed the 99 as far as the race team goes. And SVG wins the Chicago street race. Those were kind of the bright spots for them, were Nashville and Chicago, and they came kind of really close together there. But you're right. One thing you kind of mentioned overall that I'm getting the sense of is like these early rounds of the playoffs. It's all about just being consistent. If you can just be consistent, finish top 15, top 10, and don't have a bad race in the round, you have a pretty good shot of advancing. And you also kind of bring up the fact, especially with where Ryan's sitting, it's be super awesome to finish second every week, gain all these points, gain all these stage points. But if you're not winning stages and getting bonus points, like those points, except for helping you advance to the next round, mean nothing, because as soon as you get to the next round, Ryan will be sitting right back at the cut line again. So
yeah. So actually, we'll probably be, depending on who gets knocked out, we'll probably be below the cut line in the next round. Because even if let's just say the bottom four guys that are there right now are the four guys that exit. Well, now the next round, the cut line goes, they'll be cutting from 12 to 8. Well, if you left everything the way it is, well, then Ryan will be below that cut line by a couple points, but only a couple points. So, then it only really, really gets hairy when you get to the round of 8. So we get to the round of 8, three guys that win. If the three guys in the round of 8 win the 3 different races, then you have to beat the other 4 guys on points in those 3 weeks. And that's the kind of crazy thing. Although last year you had a car or two that won a race inside those rounds that wasn't even still in the playoffs. So that's going to be the interesting part in the weeks to come. But I mean, right now, this next 3 weeks, we have Darlington, Kansas, and Bristol. We'll talk about the next round when we get to the next round. But I think, barring really bad, like you said, barring 3 really bad races where you have three issues and finish way down the list, I do see them advancing. And it would be nice to win one of them. Win Kansas or win Bristol. I'm okay with that. Maybe get that crown. Maybe get the other crown jewel this week.
Yeah, that wouldn't be. I'd be okay with that. Ryan's entered the playoffs in all kinds of different ways, with momentum, without momentum. Some would say without momentum this year. A couple of years ago, he came in with back-to-back wins. And correct me if I'm wrong, was that they come in with the back-to-back wins, and is that when they immediately get that penalty at Darlington for leaving like the ballast in the car? I think that might have been, and that kind of soured that playoff run. Last year, I mean, they didn't win a race at all. They come into the playoffs, I think, with a decent amount of playoff points because of stage wins and things like that.
Yeah. And
have like honestly, a pretty disastrous run through the playoffs with like some races where things just imploded. And he, bounces his way all the way through almost, within 2 or 3 points of making it to the championship 4. So I'm not big on this, like, oh, they don't have any momentum. I'm like, they've come in with all the momentum in the world and fell on their face. So, I mean, anything can happen in these playoffs, and it's really all going to kick off at Darlington here. And you said, Darlington's kind of a ho-hum track for him. Taking a look at his stats here, 13 starts, just 2 top 10s in those 13 starts, an average finish of 17.8. Earlier in the season, the Goodyear 400, he finished in the 9th position. So that was only his second top 10. But his previous finishes there were 22nd, 17th, and 13th. So, honestly, if he can come out of here with a top 10, that's a good way to kick off the playoffs, not have any problems. I mean, my biggest thing, and I just said they're worthless when they come to the reset, but man, this team needs to find a way in this playoff run to get stage points again. They got to find a way to qualify up front. They got to find a way to get stage points and win some stages if possible, because if not, they're not going to go very far in the playoffs without doing that, sitting at the cut line.
Yeah. Well, what do they say in baseball about momentum is as good as your next day starter? The same thing here. When they won their race, they won the 600. They did some some things. They had a problem with
penalty right away, after that.
Yeah, because they were doing some creative things to see what kind of things they can do, and I think that's part of what we've seen these last couple of weeks. That or the last month and a half since then, or 2 months since then, is that they were trying different things and maybe testing some things, and of course they want to win every week and they want to try to build some extra points and do those kind of things. But just like Joey last year, Joey went into the playoffs last year and didn't really, he kind of he won his race, he got in, and then all of a sudden he kept consistently doing everything, and then he'd win a race when he needed to, so same thing here. We just, we're in now. Let's be consistent, do good things, and then watch Ryan win a race or 2 down the stretch and get our way down there to Arizona.
Well, let's talk about those races down the stretch here. So obviously this first round, we mentioned it already multiple times, Darlington, Kansas, Bristol. Then we move on to the round of 8 at Texas, Talladega, Charlotte, or round of 12, right? And then then round of 8 here with Las Vegas, Homestead, Martinsville, And then the championship race is there at Phoenix. So you already mentioned the fact that you think they could have a good chance to win at Kansas. You would love for them to either win Darlington or Bristol. That's coming up. But is there any of these other tracks that stand out to you? Martinsville obviously stands out to me. They've run extremely well at Martinsville, just haven't been able to get to victory lane yet. They're going to Texas. Texas is a place where he, kind of infamously, I would say, won the All-Star race holding his window net up there. You have Talladega, where he's won multiple fall races at Talladega, I think, or at least just multiple races at Talladega in general. He's won at the Roval. Homestead was a top 5 run last year until the incident I don't want to talk about. And Las Vegas, same thing, had an incident there too. So, but was running well.
Right. So it could have been a top 10 finish there.
But man, they've run well at almost every. I mean, Charlotte. So the Roval. We talk about, he won the Roval. He won the first Roval. That's great. He was arguably much better on road courses in the last generation of car. I think that's kind of shown up here. So I'm not seeing the Roval as a place that he can win at. But when you're talking about Kansas, you're talking about Bristol, you're talking about Texas, you're talking about Talladega, you're talking about Las Vegas, talking about Homestead to some extent, and especially Martinsville. I think the 12 team could legitimately, with the speed Fords have been kind of showing, it'd be great if they could go over and try to cheat off some of the notes that RFK Racing has going on right now to help them out. That'd be nice. But man, I think they could come out and win any of these races, but hopefully they're going to win a race here when it matters and it gets them into the next round of the playoffs.
Yeah, that next round with Texas, was it Texas Talladega?
Charlotte,
in Roval. Just get to the Roval where you don't need to win the race. Okay, because they do a very good job of managing that race in a way where they'll maximize points and so on and so forth. And without the stage breaks at the end of without the cautions at the end of the stage breaks, they'll be able to race for points if they need to race for points. And that's what they'll do, depending on what kind of box they're in, So just get to that point, get to that race where you don't need that race to make the next round of the playoffs, winning Talladega or winning Texas would be ultimately the best way to do that. But just have good races, the 2 races before that. So I know we're getting way down the line, okay. but I really think that's where the run, really, really starts to solidify. The momentum will show up a little bit there where they'll show how good they are. Texas is a track that he can win at. And, they definitely had the speed to win $1 million last year. So
I'm rooting for them to do well, advance in the first place to that next round, and then rooting for him to do well at Texas and Talladega because, man, the Roval last year was painful because they had to play the points game, he and the 22 both, and they stayed out on strategies and got stage points, and then it was difficult to pass, and they finished in the back. The rest of the way, but it got them to the next round.
It got them to the next round, both of them. So it worked. Like I said, they'll have to, if they have to play that game, they'll play that game. So, but you never know too. That's the thing, is like the Roval, as far as a road course, is a lot different than any of the other road courses because it uses the track. It uses 75-80% of the track, and except for the that little dog leg type thing, the chicane back there,
front and back actually.
Except for those 2 spots, I see a lot of passing coming off of the infield up into turn 1, and their car performed really well in those areas. So it could be better than we think, because it's not your normal road course. So
again, the NASCAR Cup Series playoff, these 10-race stretch to the championship at Phoenix all kicks off this weekend. Darlington Raceway, if you want to catch practice and qualifying, happens at 12:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Saturday on USA. And the race itself, the NASCAR Cup Series Cookout Southern 500, a crown jewel event in the NASCAR Cup Series schedule, this Sunday, September 3rd at Darlington Raceway at 6 p.m. Be there. If you can be there, and you know who else is going to be there? The Ryan Blaney Family Foundation is going to have their merchandise tent and information tent there. They put that release out earlier this week. So if you're going to Darlington, you haven't stopped by the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation tent yet, they have some exclusive merchandise that's there, exclusive to the foundation itself. You can go there. You can meet Patty. I'm not sure if anybody else will be there manning the booth this weekend.
Yeah, you never know.
But they've got awesome hats, awesome shirts, they oddly enough will sell like some other things you're not expecting, like jewelry, necklaces, like bags, and I mean it's lots of cool, unique items that you can tell that that probably Emma and Aaron and Leah are all kind of designing on their own and putting it out there. It's really cool to see, and maybe stuff you wouldn't expect to be buying at the track. It's not like going to the merch hauler. They have some really exclusive and unique things that, I would like to say, I don't want to just say true Blaney fans will get, but you really got to be like a next level Blaney fan to be going out to out to that foundation tent. And I think everybody should be a next level Blaney fan. Yeah, everybody, do this and support them because, man, it goes to a great cause.
Yeah, Emma has her own store. She is a store retail, online and an actual storefront in her area. And you're right. Some of the stuff that they sell is actually some of the merchandise that she sells at her store. So it's kind of a neat thing that like you said, all the stuff goes to the charity. Any of the profit they make goes to the charity. And I think some of the flag and anthem stuff show up there too.
I think sometimes, sometimes it does. I know they had that shirt that Gianna and Ryan designed together, and I think they do sell that at the booth. So, I know Flag and Anthem does help them design a couple things. So make sure you go check them out. Say hi to Patty for us. She is so awesome. She does some great things for the foundation, and she's been in this a long time and does a great job helping them out. Yeah, and she would love to tell you all about the foundation, all of their events, all of their causes, give you a flyer, and they've, stickers, magnets. I mean, they got all kinds of cool stuff. Go buy, you don't have to buy a $30 shirt or something. You can pick up a magnet for a few bucks or something. So
just make a donation there,
support them. Yeah. It'd be awesome, and hope to see you there while we're there this weekend as well. And they also mentioned the fact they've revamped the Ryan Blaney Family Foundation.org website, so you can go check that out there. Find the links to their online store. If you're not going to be there on site, you can also buy some things online. But some really cool things happening with the foundation this week, and I'm really glad that they're going to get out there and mingle with the race fans again at another racetrack this year. Steve, I think that pretty much wraps up this week's episode of the Team Blaney podcast. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. If you'd like to learn more about myself or co-host Steve, just listen to our very first episode that explores our Blaney racing fandom. You can interact with us on Facebook and X at Team Blaney, and on Instagram and TikTok at Team.Blaney. And finally, I'd like to encourage you to support the aforementioned Ryan Blaney Family Foundation. Established in 2018, this organization supports causes like the Alzheimer's Association and UPMC Sports Medicine through fundraisers, events, and membership in the Blaney Bunch Fan Club. To learn more, visit RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org, the all-new RyanBlaneyFamilyFoundation.org, or follow them on Facebook, X, Instagram, all their very active social media channels. So for my co-host Steve Mez, I'm Adam Rogers. We'll catch you next time right here on the Team Blaney podcast.
Good night, Brussels. Check out the TikTok.
Well, thanks everybody for coming. I hope you enjoyed it.